Got
Yeah.
quality check something on that.
Wes, as he was growing up, I always taste his food because it always looked good, and I'm testing for poison, and he got to the point where he would go, "There's no poison in here."
Don't eat my food.
Yeah.
Some of that baby food was good, man. I used to fight over that.
I used to love baby's food, spinach.
I used to love, they had something called Dutch apple dessert.
Oh, that was
The
good.
absolute best. And they had apricots and apples. That was delicious. I love apricots and apple both. But that Dutch apple dessert was something in the world. You don't see it no more. They got weird stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Got real people fixing it too.
It's,
They're kind of busy out there.
I leave it like that so they feel welcome.
well, we'll get started. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Jim.
Thank you. It's a happy Sunday.
Happy
I'm gonna
Sunday.
let it go because you got to practice,
I am.
but let's work on that. The lesson is from Acts, and again, Acts is basically the story of how the Christian faith was spread and how the Gentiles were brought into it, as well as the original ones were pretty much all Jewish originally. And, part of Jesus' charge to the disciples was to spread this message outside of the Jewish community. And so, this is a story, we all know the story of Philip, who an angel spoke to him and told him to go out here on this road between Jerusalem and Gaza. He didn't tell him why, just told him to go. So he went and he found this Ethiopian man who was an official for the Ethiopian queen. And Ethiopia, according to what I read in this teacher book, was not the Ethiopia that we know of today. It was, which is way down in the central part of Africa. It was actually the area south of Egypt, which bordered on the Red Sea, I believe it is. So I don't understand the name thing, but that's not really important. Anyway, this fellow was an official of the Ethiopian royal house, and he had been to Jerusalem, it says, to worship God, because he was apparently he was trying to figure out what this new faith was. And he was a eunuch, which means he was castrated at some time when he was younger. And the reason they done that was, if you castrate a man, he's not going to have the same ambition that he would otherwise. You can trust him better when you castrate him. And that was what they thought. You're less likely to lead a rebellion if you had been castrated. So eunuchs were created. There weren't that many, it's very rare somebody be born like that. Basically, they castrated these people when they were real young. And use them for trusted positions in the royal household. In not just Ethiopia, but everywhere. It's mentioned eunuchs all through the Old Testament. And this fellow he'd been to Jerusalem to worship. And if you go back and think about the Jewish laws, he wouldn't have been allowed to go in and worship with the Jews because he was a eunuch, because he was imperfect. It's kind of bad. You make somebody imperfect, and then discriminate against them because of what you done did to them. That's kind of mean treatment, I think. But anyway, as far as the Mosaic laws, he could not participate in Jewish worship. But he was interested in this new faith. He was trying to understand it. And he had the scriptures he was reading. He was reading in Isaiah. And I don't know what scriptures they had back then. I think they had the older Jewish texts that were available. And he was reading part in Isaiah about the suffering servant, as we find out. And the Spirit told Philip, go up here to this, find this man's carriage and stay with it. And stay right there by it. So he's going to run alongside the carriage, or maybe the carriage will stop. And this Ethiopian man is reading in Isaiah of the passages about the suffering servant. And Philip spoke to him and said, do you understand what you're reading? He thought he was reading. The guy said, well, just me with nobody to teach and guide me. He said, how can I? He said, and he asked Philip, how about you get up here and sit with me and let's talk about it. And so he asked Philip, so what is this passage talking about? And who? Is it talking about himself, Isaiah, or is it talking about somebody else? Or what? He said, I don't understand. And if you go read it and just read it out of context, it is kind of hard to figure out who he's talking about. And so Philip starts explaining to him about Jesus. And the unit becomes excited, and they're going on down the road in the carriage, and they see a stream or a pool or something. And the Ethiopian guy says, what's to stop me from being baptized? And he said, I believe it, you know. So Philip takes him down and baptizes him. And when they came up out of the water after Philip had baptized this man, Philip disappeared. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, or the angel of the Lord that was going with him, just took him up away from that. And don't say nothing about the Ethiopian guy being real surprised or nothing. But you know, in the Bible, in some of these stories, they leave out some stuff that we kind of wish they would have left in there. But this man continued to believe, and you know, we don't know. It doesn't really say nothing about it. But he probably went back home and told other people about his experience. So God is having the word of Jesus, and Jesus gives to us. He's having to spread here, there, and yonder. And I kind of was wondering how this lesson going to fit into anything that we got going on right now. But the more I thought about it, I said, well, we got an anniversary that we celebrate. And it's an odd number anniversary, but what is it, 240?
242.
242 is kind of odd number to be celebrating, but we just want to have a celebration. So, but we're celebrating the beginning of Plain Chapel Church when Bishop Asbury was. I'm amazed that somebody of his importance could even find Bobby, North Carolina, rather even not let alone come down here. But there had been some communication back and forth, and he came through here. And so my ancestors sat down with him and apparently said, we want to start a church. And so, you know, from whatever went on then, we still have Plain Chapel today. It's one of the oldest churches in this area. And it's still holding on. Excuse me. And we've had dedicated people through the years to make sure it kept going on. So these men that got together with Bishop Asbury back in whatever year it was, 242 years ago, I guess, they wanted somewhere to worship. They wanted to spread the gospel. And they were serious enough about it that they all gave us what they had to start this church. And apparently, they were effective enough leaders in the community to keep this thing going. And it has kept going since. You know, our community has changed from what histories I've been able to read of Vance County. You know, it was sort of like a plantation community for the most part. There weren't riches in cotton plantations down in Mississippi used to be, but it was the same kind of society. And yet these people had a vision of something that they wanted to start and to spread. And so, you know, the story of Philip talking to the Ethiopian and spreading the gospel of Christ a little bit more, you know, the same thing happened here over 200 years ago. And it's still going on. We're still trying to spread the gospel, trying to make new disciples. And that's what the whole book of Acts, that's what it's about, is going out of your community to some, which these people, the Plain Chapel, didn't go out of the community, but they went out of their everyday living to try to start something new. So it's kind of related, you know. You got the word of Christ being spread through the years, and it's a lot of examples in Acts of persecution of the early church, but it seems like all the persecution of the church did was encourage it. And, you know, we've been fortunate at Plain Chapel in the United States. We haven't had a whole lot of people trying to stop the churches from growing. Not like they did back then, not harassing them and even killing them if necessary, like Saul and the other Jewish zealots were doing. They were trying their best to get rid of the church. You know, the Romans tried to get rid of it. And the more they tried to get rid of it, the more it grew. And, you know, you can trace it on down through the years from this that went on in Acts back then. The Christian faith spread throughout the Middle East where they were then. It spread to Europe eventually when the Romans gave up trying to get rid of it. And from there, you know, more likely to spread to this country. And it keeps on spreading. You know, there's still a lot of challenges. The World Methodist Church is facing a very serious challenge now. But in spite of all that, the Christian faith is still going on. It's still strong. And, you know, that's what we're celebrating today. The fact that what these men started back in Bobbitt years and years and years ago is still going strong. In Acts, it shows how this new Christian faith kept getting stronger and stronger. And it's amazing that it spread so much. And, excuse me, I went through so many challenges. And early in Acts, some of the Jewish leaders are talking about, what can we do to get rid of these people? What can we do to stop this? And this one old fella, I want to say his name was Gamaliel, but that might be the wrong person. He was telling us that, you know, if this is something coming from God, he said, you can't stop it anyway. He said, if it's just people with a new fad, he said, don't worry about it, it'll stop on its own. But he said, if this is actually God working through these people, he said, ain't nothing you can do to stop it. And they didn't want to hear that really. But we see from history, it was nothing they could do to stop it. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it because it's from God. And the reason I think that this church has lasted so long in this community and is still solid, not in danger of drying up, it's because the people who started it and the people that kept it going believe they're doing what God wants them to do. And like the old Jewish guy said, if God is behind it, then you're not going to stop it, no matter what. We got plenty of time left, but it ain't, to me, it ain't so much I can say about this lesson, but it does relate to what we celebrate today, because it's the spreading of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's what they were all about back then. That's what we're still all about. Anybody want to make a comment on anything?
Well, Tim, you know, mentioned "We Are the World" song.
Yeah.
I tried to run a copy of that off. I could never get it to print. But anyway, I think about it. That was back in 1980 something. But I think about it today. We could pull that song back out and sing it again instead of, well, Africa still needs our help, but Ukraine and all the other countries, and we could even put America in it now. That we all need to work together, just like Philip helped this man. We need to help others.
At Donald Rose, I was thinking some of the same things along your line. I was thinking back when we had a problem 70 years ago, or 75 here at Plank Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a problem. And they come together and
And
help.
help each other.
That's right. We had a disastrous fire at my house 60 years ago. And the whole community worked for about 30 hours or 36 hours. And people that I was surprised to see, everybody stuck together. But if we would have that today, I just don't know whether.
We would expect the fire department to handle it.
Right,
We wouldn't go.
that's right.
Was it a stable, a barn, or
It was a stable, it was a pack house, it was, you were up there,
I remember it.
you may have helped cook all night.
I don't know. I was younger, but I can remember it. I can remember Daddy well, I know.
And I remember on several occasions, some of the people in the community got sick and the community worked his crop
Mm-hmm.
until he got able to take care of it.
We don't do that now.
No,
It's still people do that.
That is a few, yes.
And that's why they'll never destroy the Christian church, because there's still people who believe it, and it don't take but a few to live that way
Mm-hmm.
that keeps it going. I believe that.
You know, we know there's Christian communities throughout Africa, kind of where Ethiopia is now, actually. But
Yeah.
you know, you read a story like this, and you wonder if that eunuch went back and spread the religion, if that's how it started,
Could be.
or someone like him.
Yeah, they mentioned that in one of the book, teacher student book, I don't know which, that we don't know, but you kind of guess that he probably didn't keep his experience to himself.
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't.
I be wanting to tell about y'all ain't gonna believe what happened to me. But you know, that could be the beginning of it. And I don't know about the other Christian church, but I know the Methodist Church has more membership on the continent of Africa than there was in the world put together.
but talk about churches, and I don't say it bothers me, but I don't quite understand it. At times, we have been off somewhere traveling Sunday morning until 9 o'clock or 10 or 12 o'clock, and we pass some churches with 4 to 8 cars. Well, nobody there. and you go on down the road a half a mile, there'll be another one just like it.
But it's like we've said, we've got so many Methodist churches within a few miles of each other.
Because they all got mad about something and split up.
Right.
And that's always the case. That's why we have so many churches
And
with
the
few
same way
people.
with the Baptists. You got
Yeah.
so many different Baptists. We cannot stick
We
together.
can't put aside our little
Differences.
differences, and they're generally petty differences.
Mhm.
Well, you know, that's true, but you go back, say, 150 years, and people walk to church.
Mhm.
True.
So you had to have a lot of churches within, a couple miles, so people could get there.
That's true. You couldn't be out of range
Or
of possibly getting that.
But the other thing that's happened is the population has changed. We don't have the big farm families like we had.
Right, no, we don't. Everybody
150
stayed
years ago.
there, the children grew up and stayed around home. Now they go out.
And
One thing I was
families
going
are smaller.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to mention, and I forgot, was the men that started Plank Chapel. They all had different last names, but every one of them kin each other.
Mhm.
Everybody in this
They
whole
were
community
family.
was from
Somehow
the original
no
family.
kin to each other.
Just like, it always used to surprise me. It's so many people in Bob and Kittrell that we kin to on mama's side and on daddy's side through a different route. And everybody's like that. We all still kin to each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was when Gwen's great-great-grandparents died. The county, this is right after Advance became a county, appointed a commission, because they didn't have a will.
Yeah.
They had 5 children. They appointed a commission to divvy up the land, because that's the only thing they had of value. And it's very hard to read. It's handwritten, quill pen. But the interesting thing is if you go and look at this board that signed it, they all signed it, got all their names there, you will recognize every surname. I mean, they're all Finches or Woodliffs or,
Smiths.
or one of the names that, is still around.
I think I'm the last Mitchell left. There are no more Mitchell.
Really?
I'm the only last one. Now, of course, you're kin to the Gills.
Yeah.
And I'm kin to the Gills. But I'm the only
We don't have, like Scott said, that it used to be all farm families living and working on a farm. You need a bunch of people. And, in my family, there ain't many children. It's 4 of us, brothers and sisters, and us 4, it ain't 3 children.
Well, see, John and I don't have any children, so I don't
We don't have them like we
nobody
used
left
to.
care to Mitchell. So we just gone.
Well, back then, when it was an agricultural society, children were future farmhands. And having a lot of children was economically
Necessary.
a good thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, particularly in the cities, children are a luxury expense.
Oh, yeah.
Farming, agriculture is getting to be a thing of the past.
It is, but what you ask children nowadays, like I know you heard before, you ask them, where does milk come from? The grocery store. They don't know nothing about a cow or eggs or the chicken. And I think we're not raising our children, like I said, we're getting away from agriculture. We're building houses on all the land. And when I die, I don't want the land I'm living on now to go to building no houses or no trailer park, and I'm gonna do everything I can to keep it from happening. We are doing away with our farmland, and yet that's what we have to depend on to eat. You cannot grow vegetables in a house.
People don't remember the lessons of the past.
No.
Well, I can remember on Sunday morning, it would be at least a half a dozen cars that brought some vegetables to church to give to the neighbors.
Yeah. Now, I used to bring tomatoes, but I ain't had no luck with tomatoes, and I don't know when.
This year, it's hard to have luck with anything.
And one year I grew Irish potatoes, and I had so many bushels of Irish potatoes left when we drove that old station wagon. And we brought bushels of Irish potatoes and set that anybody to one in it. And now I can't even grow an ash potato.
Can't do it. I gave up trying.
They just don't do my soil, something wrong with the soil.
I don't know how tuned in everybody is to what's going on in the world, but we're fixing to have a global famine this fall because of primarily fertilizer, but also war. Sri Lanka, country of Sri Lanka, they decided they were going to go all organic fertilizer, no chemical fertilizer. And of course, that cuts the crop yield at about half.
Yeah.
And right now, there's fixing to be a revolution in Sri Lanka because if there's anything that'll get people to revolt, it's
Being
hungry.
hungry, yeah.
Lack of food. And then, of course, you're hearing a little bit about it, but even American farmers, and Tim may know something about this, the cost of planting has gotten so high
Yes.
that many American farmers are only planting a half or a quarter of what they have done previously because the cost of fertilizers doubled, at least 50% increase depending on what kind, or doubled. So America's going to be okay. I mean, we got the best farmland in the world, but
But out west, though, what is it that some places is so dry?
the whole western U.S. is having a drought.
Yeah, it's been a bad year all over the country, but we got such huge reserves that nobody even knows about.
Right, and they don't let
The,
loose.
the government, one of the few smart things our government has done is they have maintained food reserves.
But also we have some of the billionaires that are buying up huge tracts of farmland and not growing anything on it.
Yeah.
The largest private farmland owner in the United States is Bill Gates. And he doesn't farm any of it.
Mm-hmm. He just plays with his money.
No, he's just locking it up. It's like,
He's trying to.
it's his treasure. It's what he stored his
Yeah.
treasure in.
And I think there's an ulterior motive there too, but we ain't gonna get into that.
Well, the interesting thing is, in the very near future, there may be a dose of reality going around that people, especially in this country, have ignored for a long time. We were talking about food.
I fear you're right.
I heard a commentator, this was years ago, but he commented, he said, the thing that's wrong with America is people are too far removed from the production of food. They do not understand what it takes to keep them alive.
And how hard it, but just think about how hard it is just to have a little garden at home. You got to get out there and work it. It ain't gonna grow and do by
You can
itself.
work it, but we got it so easy. There's nowhere else I know of in the world that you can go to not far to a supermarket and buy the amount of food, the variety, the quality is not that bad.
Just like if I
Nowhere else in the world can you.
right.
It's so much food so readily available.
No
It's
more
here.
squash than I use. I can use it, buy it from the grocery store a whole lot cheaper than I can raise it at home.
You can, but it's safer when you raise it.
But it's safe and it tastes better.
It
Bees to pollinate, we got squash and they get rid of this long, no bees, and we just.
Look, I have not seen a honeybee this season.
yeah.
Not the first one.
Well, fortunately, they ain't the only ones doing the pollen.
But I tell you, we're well blessed with June bug.
Yeah. Well, they do. They pollinate a lot too.
They have their job too.
They all, every bug that's flying around.
Whatever that job is, they doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I have not seen many June bugs. And in my yard this spring, you find holes about big as this. And I don't know, as the birds or something of them has been getting that little larva out of the ground.
I think the crows are doing that.
I think it's mostly crows. And that's the only birds I've seen, except for robin, that'll sit there and dig in the ground.
Woodpeckers will do it. I've seen woodpeckers in my yard. But I've only seen 2 June bugs.
I hadn't seen any.
We saw a bunch of them earlier.
I haven't seen any Japanese beetles yet.
Ooh, we got plenty of them.
But my yard was full of holes. John asked me one day, he says, what's making all these holes?
I think the June bugs are.
Well, I think that the birds or something
Now,
just
somebody-
hitting them.
Somebody made a remark to me and they didn't back it up either. If you dug up 6 inches of soil in a 3-foot spot, you'd find a dozen June bugs
Gone.
about 3 inches below the top.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've buried 2 cats lately and I didn't see any.
Do you remember tying a string on the June bug's leg?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let me stop this thing. There's a boat wanted to you.
God bless.
Thank y'all for coming this morning, and we'll see you. Oh,
They
We'll
wonder
see
what
Don
kind of
Road next
religion
week.
They wonder what kind of religion we got.
that's right.